Hello, welcome back, or welcome. Today, I decided to do a tier ranking of all of the books that I've read this year, which I think was 50 something, which is like 30 books more than my goal, which was 20. Going into this, I do want to say that this is just my personal preference. There are some books on here that are very commonly liked, authors that are like adored and loved. I just want to say this is my personal opinion. Just because a book didn't resonate with me doesn't mean it's not a good book or people shouldn't read it or the author isn't a good writer. It just didn't work for me. And I feel like a lot of times when books work for you or don't, it also just depends on the headspace that you're in, the mentality you have, your environment, what's going on in your life. I feel like those really impact books and how you're going to react to them and take them in. But anyways, with that being said, I also do want to say that I'm not going to go over so much the premise of these books. I think I'm just going to kind of say why I'm putting them in what tier they're in. A big way that I kind of rank my books is mainly, I know people have like different ways of how they decide what book gets a 5-star, what book gets a 1-star. For me, it's just so you guys can kind of understand like my ranking, if you guys care. But for me, when I read a book and I finish it, I usually rank it on the feeling, like that feeling that I have when I finish the book. I know some people are usually like, well, I need to like sit on it to think about like the impact this book had on me, or if I liked it or not. I think that moment after finishing a book, you kind of already know if you like a book or not, and if you have to think about it, that's kind of a sign in itself. I rank very highly on the feelings that the book leaves me, not so much of it's like, it could be a silly goofy book, but if it was a silly goofy book that made me feel silly goofy in all the right ways and really helped me and like impacted me and resonated with me, even if it's like completely unrealistic, like whatever, if it did its job and it conveyed emotions to me in a strong manner, it's gonna be a 5-star. And you guys will kind of see the pattern as we go through. This is my second time filming this because the first time my camera was against me, but that's just kind of how it goes. And I usually give 1 stars or no stars to the books I don't finish, because I'm very big on not finishing books just to say you finished a book. And I'm trying to be better about that, because there were a few books that I kind of wished I DNF'd this year that I didn't. We will go ahead and get started. I'm going to go over my rankings, my tiers. So we have My Baby, which is obviously the top tier. These are books that I would probably reread. These are books I will rave about. If you ask me about these books, I'm going to go on a whole tangent. These authors probably have shelves of their own. These books either made me cry, made me feel something, or I just really resonated to a part of the book that absolutely changed. Like, I felt like after reading the book, I just felt like seen, heard, whatever. I Love You, Pookie. These books are books that I loved, but not as much as I did as the My Baby tier. And these are still 5-star reads. My Baby is more like 6 out of 5, 7 out of 5. Like, you get the gist. You Had Potential. So these are books that were good, but fell flat somewhere, which we'll kind of get into what that means a little bit more as I go through these rankings. But these were books that I did like, but not enough to give it a 5 stars or 4-star. You know what? Okay. These are books that I read and I just kind of was like, okay, it's done. I never really thought about it again. Would I recommend it? Probably not, because I finished it and never really thought about it again. Oh, honey. These books are going to be the books that I kind of finished reading and was like, why did I read this? Why did I finish it? These books just are hassles to get through. I don't want to get through them. I want them to get better, but they usually don't. D for DNF. I think I DNF'd around 8 books this year, which I don't think is too bad. I think if we do the math, that's probably like 6%, I think, if I did my math right, which I probably didn't because math is not my thing. But these are books that I DNF'd, and also these are going to be books that I kind of really wished I DNF'd, and really I gained nothing from reading it. Which is a little different from Oh Honey, because Oh Honey, the book was like, I wanted it to get better, but it didn't, and I had like hopes for it, I guess. You'll see like a pattern as we go through. So let's go ahead and just get started. King of Wrath. Y'all, I'm gonna have to look up which one this is, because the first time I did it, I didn't remember which couple this book was, so we're gonna skip that for now just so I can look it up later and be 100% sure. Okay, so we have The Cruel Prince. This is a book that was circulating around Book Talk when I was first getting introduced to Book Talk. I did kind of have expectations for this. I think I went into it expecting more romance, and if you're expecting romance, this book is not going to be for you. And to be honest, I didn't like how Jude was always getting her butt handed to her, and nothing really happened until the last couple of pages. But I did like the ending half of the story so much that I did pick up the second book. So I think we're gonna put it in, you know what, okay, because it was just kind of mid, and I feel like a middle tier is good, but I also don't want to say you had potential, because there's so many times throughout the book where I was just kind of like, is this worth it? Should I read it again? Like, should I keep going? Should I read something else? And usually when I have those things, I'm very clearly not into the story. Next we have Clockwork Princess. If y'all had not read this series, you need to read this series. I think this is the third book in the series. And Cassandra Clare, I read her City of Bones. Side story, I read her City of Bones series, not all of it, but like the first 3 or 4 books in middle school, and I really loved it. This one was done so perfectly. I don't know the era that Bridgerton takes place in, but that was definitely like books with that era where there's like balls, courting, the gowns, the dresses, and like the crazy wigs. I love that era and I will eat it up every freaking time. The world building was great, the power system amazing, the shadow hunters. And seeing them like in an earlier viewpoint than from City of Bones, the characters are perfect. The love triangle done so well. You were not left hating anyone. And for me personally, the whole time I was kind of like, I don't know who I want her to end up with. I know who I would want to end up with, but I don't know who I want her to end up with, you know? It was a really a book that made me feel a lot of things. So we're gonna go ahead and put it in Love You Pookie. Next we have As Good as Dead, which is the third book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. We are gonna put her in D for DNF. I think I read about 50% of this book, and then the plot twist happened, and I was like, no way. And not a good no way either, just in a no way of like, this is so left field and so unrealistic. I just don't think I can continue. And so I skimmed through the last couple chapters, and I'm glad I did not force myself to read the rest of this because it just was not what I wanted. Next we have The House Across the Lake. We are gonna put it in Oh Honey. It was interesting in a way that you kind of like, you want to know what's happening even though you kind of already know, but then the ending happens and you're like, this is so out of left field. Like, just randomly there's supernatural aspects thrown into it, like the last couple chapters, and it's like, huh? It just was not the wrap up that I wanted. And so we're gonna put it in Oh Honey because it was a little typical cookie cutter storyline already, and then the ending was just kind of like, there was no hint to this. Like, it was so out of left field. Bride. You're gonna put Sister in D for DNF because I did not finish this. I had high hopes for this because everybody that's read it has loved it, and I really wanted to love it, but I just couldn't. I didn't like the female main character. I didn't like the male main character. I thought the premise was interesting. I love vampires and werewolves and all that stuff. But I just can't do books that aren't like slow burn, I guess. There's no like tension, no yearning. It's just straight to, you know, so it just was not for me. We have Before the Coffee Gets Cold. We're gonna put it in You Had Potential, but I definitely would say that there were times where it kind of dragged, and it was kind of like, okay, so what's gonna happen? But I did really like this book, but I don't think I loved it enough to read any of the other books in the series. I think there's 3 of them, so that's why we're gonna put it in You Had Potential. Just for December by Abby Jimenez. Okay, I'm trying to think where I put this last time. I really love this book. I think we're gonna put it in Love You Pookie. We're gonna put it in Love You Pookie because I feel like I related to the female main character a bit. Not so much in the way of like her family dynamics, but I just feel like I related to her, like how she handles her romantic dynamics. And the guy was so sweet too. So Love You Pookie because it is a good book. I think it's the only book I read of hers that I actually have good things to say about. Next we have Beach Read by Emily Henry. Okay. This one. I don't know, I kind of want to put it in You Had Potential, but then also Love You Pookie, but I think we're gonna have to put it in You Had Potential. It was still a good book and I still enjoyed it for what it was, but with my romance books, I'm a little bit picky just because if it's too like outlandish and too unrealistic and like too fast paced. It's not gonna sit right with me just because I'm not that kind of girly. But this one was really, the ending, like everything was wrapped up like neatly with a bow, like most romance novellas are. But I don't know why she had to bring in the X and the whole X thing, and I'm very much anti-X. I'm sorry. So that was kind of like, I didn't really like that, and I was like, no way, I just read all of this for that. Next we have Part of Your World. We're gonna put it in Oh Honey. This book, I just did not like it. I did not like it. I like the male main character, but he is probably the only thing I liked in this book. The female main character is so mean to him and just embarrassed of him, and the whole time I'm thinking like, why are you okay with this? Which I know is easier said than done, but I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, you are so mean to him. And he's so sweet. Like, he deserved better, I feel like. Next we have The Night Circus. Okay. This one's a little bit hard because I want to put it in You Know What Okay or You Had Potential. Because I was kind of expecting Carville vibes. Because it's like a circus. And it's like, it was a really interesting premise and I really, really wanted to like it. But I think it's one of those books where you kind of have to read it and be able to see the deeper meaning in between the lines. And I'm not that kind of person. If I have to stop and reread, I'm instantly like losing, like, I'm just losing interest in the book just because I want to read a book and be able to like know things, you know what I mean? I don't want to have to like sit and like look something up when I'm reading, which maybe that'll change as I get older, but I'm just not in that era of reading. So I think I don't know. We'll put it in You Know What Okay, because if I'm gonna be so honest, the whole time I was reading this book, I was just kind of waiting for it to be over. Next we have The Naturals. We are gonna put it in Love You Pookie. This book did exactly what it needed to. I think it's like a quick read. I don't know how many pages it is, but I think on the Kindle it's like 6 hours or something, or like 5 hours. I really like this. Next we have Starling House. We are gonna put it in D for DNF. I cannot tell you much about this book other than I was reading it. The premise was super interesting and I started reading the first couple chapters and I was like, no, this can't be. And then I read more chapters and I was like, no, this is it. And so I DNF'd it probably like not even 20% of the way into it, and I really, really did want to enjoy it. Next we have The Echo of Old Books. This one I read because it was on Kindle Unlimited and the premise was interesting. I will put it in You Had Potential just because I feel like there were some unnecessary characters and storylines that didn't need to be in it. I feel like she should have just focused on the journals and that would have had the same impact. I don't know. Rather than throwing in like another couple from the present in there. I don't know. You would have to read it. Next we have Happy Place. We are going to put it in My Baby. I actually think I'm going to reread this soon. I love this book. This book is so good. This is probably my favorite Emily Henry book that I read so far. I haven't read all of her books just yet, but I really enjoyed this book and I really resonated with it, and like the friend group and like the relationships within the friend group and the dynamics between the friends and the couples. I loved it. This book was so good. It really resonated with me the time that I was reading it. I really wanted to like this book. I think what drew me into this book is that people were comparing it to House Castle or House Moving Castle, but honestly, I really should have DNF'd this book. If you were to ask me about what I read, I would not be able to tell you because the whole time I had no idea what I was reading. And it was crazy because this book, I feel like it had so much potential and I really wanted to like it. Like the system, it was interesting, and like there were times where I did see myself getting sucked into the descriptions, but like because of the rest of the book, it just couldn't. I should have DNF'd this book. I really should have. Next we have The Handmaid's Tale. I feel like Oh Honey and You Know What Okay. We're gonna put it in You Know What Okay. I really wanted to like this book and I feel like it was thought-provoking in a way that the concept that was talked about was interesting and thought-provoking in that way of like, oh, what would we do in this situation? Could something like this actually happen? Like, how would that happen? Like that, it got me thinking. So I'm not gonna put it in Oh Honey, but I didn't know this book came out in the 80s, so I was not mentally prepared when I read the book, and it was just bland, I guess. It was just so crazy. The whole time I just wanted it to be over, but at the same time I kind of wanted to understand more, so I was drawn in, but I was also drawn in and kind of like, if this doesn't get better, I'm gonna be severely disappointed. And it is a series and I will not be finishing the rest of the series just because I cannot bring myself to. I just can't. If you are a dialogue girly, this book is not going to be for you. That and the random jumping timelines with like no warning or anything was not it for me. We have Pack Up the Moon, D for DNF. This book was just a little bit too sad for me. I know when I had picked it up, I heard great things about this author, so I picked up this book and I was like, you know what, I'm in for a good cry. No. It was too sad for me. So we have The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. We're gonna put it in You Know What, Okay. I really wanted to like this book because I have seen nothing but people with similar interests in genres, taste in genre, as me say that this book was amazing. It was cute, cozy, murder mystery, like Knives Out vibes. I just didn't really like it. I felt like the main characters were a little cookie cutter, and I felt like, I don't know, I just didn't really like it. It just felt like a little too like cookie cutter for me. You have that answer is no, and we're gonna put this in my baby. This is on Kindle Unlimited. It's like 60 pages. Y'all need to read this. Please read this. This is so good. It's my first like introduction into Frederick Bachman because I wanted to like dip my toe before I read Beartown, just to see like how his writing is, because I feel like authors who try to be like thought-provoking and like witty at the same time and quirky like don't always work for everyone. So I wanted to give it a taste, and I did, and I really enjoyed this, and it makes me really like even more excited to go read Beartown. So we have Sorry I Missed You. We're gonna put it in Love You Pookie. This is my first book by this author, and I only read it because I saw it randomly on Kindle Unlimited, and I enjoyed the premise. I really enjoyed this book, the 3 different characters, and it just felt so real to me. There was some parts of it where I was kind of like, yeah, that's a little unnecessary and a little cheesy, but for the most part, I really did enjoy it. And I felt a little sad when I finished it too, because I was like, oh, I really love these characters. Like, I don't want to say bye to them just yet. So we have Killer Instinct, which is the second book in the Natural series. We're going to put it in my baby. I finished this book so quickly, and it quite literally had me kicking my feet and giggling. And I can't say that about many books. We have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. We're going to put it in Oh Honey because I should have DNF'd this book. But it was cute for what it was. Next we have A Court of Frost and Starlight. Y'all, I really enjoyed the ACOTAR series for what it was and for what it did for me, which was basically just introduce me to the fantasy, romantasy genre. And this series really helped me get into reading. It wasn't the book that like made me want to start reading more, but it helped open up like all the new genres that there are and kind of helped me like find my taste, or like refine my taste a little bit, I guess. So I did really enjoy this series. Would I read another book by this author? Probably not. And this book was completely fluff, unnecessary. It's just fan service, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. I didn't want to read this book, but it was gifted to me, so I did read it, and I guess to say I completed the series. So we're gonna put it in Oh Honey because honestly, I had no business reading this book. I had no interest. I just didn't want to. I liked the story for what it was, but I just don't like the characters enough to read 100 pages of them doing nothing. So yeah. Next we have Nauticadia. This was my first Dark Academia book, y'all. It was 600 pages though. 650 pages, y'all. That's a long ass book. It didn't feel that long though, like the whole time, but it did feel like a little bit questionable at some points where I was kind of like, okay, this is getting like a little bit out of hand. I think though, I really liked the story though. It was really interesting and it was different. It was unique. I think that's what I really liked about it. There were some parts between the romantic interest where I was kind of like, hey, like I had to skip over one part, but I really liked it. The world building was great. I felt like I was there at the university. I felt like everything had like, you know, the first filter that is in the first Twilight movie. I felt like everything looked like that, and I honestly, I love that. I ate it up completely. So we're gonna put it in Love You Pookie. Next we have Good Girl Bad Blood, which is the second book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. We'll put it in You Had Potential because I did like this book. It was a good book, but Pip was just so mad the whole time, and like rightfully so, but she was just a little bit too mad. And we were being reminded every chapter how mad she was at everybody, and it was just kind of like, okay. Next we have Divine Rivals. We're gonna put it in Oh Honey, y'all. I did not like this book. Am I gonna finish the series? No. It was a really interesting premise, but the whole first book just felt like build up for the second book. No, I didn't like it. I'm sorry. If you're gonna ask me about anything that happens in this book, I would not be able to tell you. Next we have One Dark Window, which we are gonna put in Love You Pookie. This duology was great. I'm going to read her new book that she's currently working on when it comes out next year, and I'm excited for it. The magic system was great, unique, loved it, ate it up. And it's also in the same time period of like the courting, the balls, the dresses, and I really liked it. And there's like so many characters, but at the same time they're so different, but they play a role that is like kind of cookie cutter, but just the way she went about it was like you're just invested and you're in it and you're not overwhelmed with like all the information that's being thrown at you, which is pretty hard to do in these kinds of books. The dead guy next door. I don't want to put it in You Had Potential, and I don't want to put it in Love You Pookie. I also don't want to put it in You Know What, Okay, because this book did what it needed to, but I'm also not going to finish the series. I don't think I'm going to read another book by this author just because the writing is not for me. I just don't like this type of writing, but this book was really good and I liked it. I think it was like the old people and the relation, like the friendship dynamics between it. And the love triangle was done pretty well. And it was a slow burn as well. I don't think they had like done anything until the end of the book. I think we're just going to give it You Know What, Okay, but I did really enjoy this book and I really liked it. Next we have Half a Soul. This is the first book in the series, and once again, same time period, the courting, the dresses, the balls, love it. But I did really want to continue the series after I finished this book, but now that I'm like thinking back on it, I don't think I'm going to continue the series. So I think we're gonna, I don't want to put it in, we'll put it in You Had Potential. You Had Potential to be a 5-star read. I don't actually think it was 5 stars, but it did what it needed to, and it's a short little read, and it's cute. I think Dora is adorable. I think that's her name. I can't remember. I read it quite a while ago. But I liked it. It had potential to be worth more. But I just don't think I'm going to continue the series. The Atlas 6. D for DNF. I did not finish this book. The premise, super interesting, drew me in. I really wanted to like it. I really wanted it to be like one of those reads that kind of is like thought-provoking and like deep. But no, it's literally just chemistry, physics, math, and like all of these things. And I was really interested in it too, because I was really much like, okay, which characters are we going to trust? Which characters are we not going to trust? No. I read like a whole chapter of physics, and I was like, absolutely, positively not. If I wanted to do that, I would have majored in it, and I'm good. Vicious. Love You Pookie. This book was so good. I feel like this book would work for anyone, to be honest. I feel like you do have to give it like a little bit of time just because it is a bit different from like your palette cleansers and all that. But I feel like a lot of people could take something from this book. The power system was really, no, I want to say like power system, but just like that aspect of it was different and interesting. Oh my gosh, the two characters were so different and interesting too. I really liked that. I liked Eli and how he was supposed to be morally gray, but obviously he was in the wrong, obviously. Well, I think it also just depends on like your outlook on life and stuff, but I really liked it. And there were like multiple times where I had to put the book down because I was so nervous and anxious about what was going to happen next. And I don't think I felt that way about any books. I probably am not going to read the second book just because I feel like everything was wrapped up that needed to be wrapped up in the first book, and I don't see a reason or like what the second book could possibly be about, because I think everything was handled in the first book. But it did take me a little bit to get into it, so we're gonna put it in Love You Pookie because it definitely did what it needed to for sure. And it was just so interesting. Like, I was in it. It really, like, y'all just gotta read it. It's so good. We have Wicked King, which is the second book in the Cruel Prince series. Okay. You know what? Okay. I honestly feel like this series is just not for me. As much as I hate that, because I do want to read the book about the baby. I don't remember the baby's name. I was gonna say Jude, but it's not Jude. I forgot the baby's name. Oak. I do want to read the book about Oak. Like when he's older and comes back. But I don't know. I feel like this is just too political for me. Which is really what this book is. So do not go into it expecting romance, because you are not gonna get it. It's literally just the politics of this world that they're in. And that's just not for me. I'm sorry, I'm a dialogue girly. Something needs to be happening. They can't just be talking about what's gonna be happening, you know? The eyes are the best part. You Had Potential, because this book was a ride. I found it randomly on the Kindle store, and it was on Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, you know what, whatever. I want to read something a little bit different from what I'm usually reading. It did take me a little bit to get into, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna finish this book, but I did. And let me tell you, by the end of this book, I would not have believed you if you were to tell me everything that happened in this book. Like, you just read the first couple chapters and then you read the last couple chapters and you're like, okay, what happened? Like, what happened to the plot of the story? But in a good way, just in a way that you were kind of like, ain't no way. Away. We have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Hmm. We'll put it in You Had Potential. I really did like this book. It's kind of what made me want to get into publishing because the female main character and the male main character, they're both in publishing. They do like different sub departments, I guess, in publishing. So it was really interesting to kind of see that. But to me, it was just a little bit too cookie cutter, but it was still a great story. But I think maybe if it wasn't so cliche of like she writes romance books, but they call her like Heartless, and then she goes to a small town, and that's like the book her author is writing. That was a little too cliche for me, but I still enjoyed it for what it was, and it did its job. One True Love. Okay, we'll skip that one for now. Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, D for DNF. Okay, I did not finish this book, and I think this was the last Abby Jimenez book where I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I think we might need to take a break from her. So I've not picked up an Abby Jimenez book since then. I don't know if I think she does have like a couple other books that I haven't read of hers. But I just couldn't with this one. Once again, I just can't with the miscommunication. And I think it's because I resonated with a little too much, and I don't really like that part about myself. So like reading about it when I'm trying not to think about things just doesn't really help. But the beginning was really cute, like the note passing and stuff. But when they had went to the party and like the miscommunication started, I was like, yeah, no, we're good on that. But the last party, oh honey, I really like this author. I like her books. I think I read all of them, to be honest, and they're all pretty good. I don't see the plot twist coming, and I think it's just because I'm so silly goofy into the pages that I'm reading. But I really wanted to like this, but I just didn't. Like, if you were to ask me what this book is about, I would not be able to tell you because I just don't remember. Twisted Crowns, which is the second book in the One Dark Window series. We are gonna put it in Love You Pookie. Once again, everything was wrapped up. I'm glad she didn't do a trilogy. It was a duology and everything was perfect. These books are both kind of thick, but I think there's enough happening in the books that it's justified to split them up. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like sometimes people just split books up to split them up. But no, she did this so perfectly. I absolutely have like no complaints. Flawless by Elsie Silver. Okay. I love silly little goofy romance books. I do. I feel like I just really wanted to like Elsie Silver because I have heard nothing but good things about Elsie Silver, and I really wanted that to be the case for me too. I liked this book. It was good. I think I finished it in like a couple of days, so it wasn't entertaining, but I think once again it was just a little bit too cookie cutter for me, and I feel like I have a problem with that when I read romance books, is that I feel like they're all just a little too similar. I feel like the only ones that are really different are Emily Henry books, but this was good. It did what it needed to, so we're gonna put it in, you know what, okay. I liked Summer in Red, or this one just recently actually, maybe like a couple months ago, but it did what it needed to. It was like a good little step into the cowboy romances and her books, so you know what, okay. Now we have Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I love my girl Stephanie Garber. Love her. Like, she has not let me down. I actually am going to reread this series after I finish the book I'm reading right now. I'm gonna reread it and I'm gonna freaking tab the hell out of it because I didn't the first time, because I was just so immersed into the story that I didn't even want to stop to tab things. So yeah, we are gonna put it in My Baby. With that being said, The Ballad of Never After and One True Love, because this series was perfect. I absolutely did cry at the end of the series, and as much as Apollo irritated me throughout the whole series, it was still good, and I feel like you kind of had to have that build up. We have Indigo Ridge. We'll put it in, you know what, okay. I was trying to remember what this one was about. This one was good. It was a quick little read. Once again though, I think they hooked up like a little too early into the book for my liking, but it served the purpose it needed to, and they were just straight up hooking up and then somehow fell in love afterwards. I just feel like that's not my reality. So I think when I read about it, I'm just like, no, and sometimes I probably need to flip that switch off just so I can enjoy these books for what they are. But you know what, okay, like, it did its thing, and it wasn't boring at all either. Oh, and there was like a little mystery in it too that I did enjoy. We Have the Teacher by Frida McFadden. You know what? Okay. I don't know why I've read so many of her books. I just have. They're quick, easy, they pull you in, like they do what they need to. And I just read it because I was on a road trip and I was like, I need something, and it did its job. So, you know what? Okay. We'll skip Legendary for now. Where the Dark Stands Still. Oh, honey. I didn't DNF this book, but I should have. Okay, so actually I'm gonna move Winter's Promise here because I didn't DNF that book. I did DNF. Okay, so Where the Dark Stands Still. I really wanted to like this book because it gave off Beauty and the Beast vibes, and I love Beauty and the Beast. Like, that's my favorite Disney princess, and it has been since I was younger. I wore the heck out of that the belle dress when I was like a toddler, a child. I wore it until it was like, it was a skirt on me. It wasn't even a dress anymore. Like, I loved being Belle. So I really had high expectations for this, and the story was, like, the premise was interesting and it did have potential. It just took me too long to read it. It took me too long to get into it. By the time, I just really was never drawn into it, honestly, so I shouldn't have finished it, and I think I spent like a month on this book. 5 Survive. Oh, honey. I really wanted to like this book. I'm still trying to find my, like, taste when it comes to thriller and horror. I don't think this is horror though, but I'm still trying to like find that author that does it for me. It used to be A.R. Torrey, but then she released that book and I was kind of like, no, I'm good. But this book just, it was just meh. Like, honestly, I really have nothing to say about it. King of Pride, D for DNF. Y'all, I DNF'd this book twice. I tried, okay? I tried. I really wanted to like it, but I just was not drawn to the couple at all. The Book of Doors, D for DNF. I don't know where I found this book, where I heard about it or whatever. The premise was super interesting, but the writing style was just not for me. It did not draw me in. It did not pull me in. We have King of Greed, which I don't remember which couple this is, to be honest. Okay, Heartless Hunter. This book was so good, y'all. This was another book where I had to put the book down because I didn't know what was gonna happen. Like, she did the cat and mouse so perfectly, because like one point, like, you know who's the cat and who's the mouse, but when it came to like advantages and like who knew what, it switched constantly, because you're like, well, I want him, like, do I want him to find out? Do I want her to get away with it? Do I just want them to kiss? I'm like, be for real. This book was so good. I'm really excited to read the second one, but to be honest, okay, no, I remember where I left off. Good book. Read it if you haven't. We have Heartless. D for DNF. I did not finish this book. This book was not slow burn. I can't do the tropes where one of the characters have a child. I just can't do the child trope. I don't aspire to have a child, let alone would I want to be with someone who has a kid. That's just my personal preference. Maybe that'll change as I get older, but I just couldn't. Once again, I wanted to like it because it's Elsie Silver, and everybody has said nothing but good things about her, but it was just too sexual for me, too soon, too early on, and a little bit too much of it, so I DNF'd it. Phantasma. Oh, honey. I should have DNF'd this book, but I just kept waiting for it to get better, and it didn't. It didn't draw me in, and I was really sad because the premise was interesting, and like, there were interesting aspects to it, but just overall, it felt kind of flat for me. Okay. Carval. Love you, Pookie. I was gonna put it in my baby, but I was like, honestly, would I reread this series? No. We are gonna put the whole Carval series in here, which is a trilogy once again. I really love this book, but would I reread it? Probably not. But I did really love this book and this series, honestly. And like I said, I think these are the only 2 series she has out. Love them. I have no complaints about it. I was immediately immersed into the story and the world and the atmosphere and just everything. The Dinner List. My baby. This book made me cry. If you have not read this book, read this book. That's all I'm gonna say. So I was crying multiple times throughout this book, and it has so many tabs in it. Probably gonna reread it. Probably has some tear stains. Read it. Next we have A River Enchanted. Oh, honey. I did not DNF this book because I really wanted to like it, and I was really hoping that it was just slow and I was waiting for things to happen. No, I just did not like this. I should have DNF'd it. I think it took me 2 months to read, which is crazy. You know how many books I could have read in 2 months, but I didn't. I can't read multiple books at once. Juniper Hill. Oh, honey. This is the second book in this series of Indigo Ridge by the same author. This was the book where I was kind of like, I'm not gonna read the others. I just fell in love too quickly. Like it didn't really sit right with me. And then also she has a daughter who like cries, or a son who like cries all the time. I'm good on that. We have Scythe. Love you, Pookie. I really enjoyed this book, and I did find myself multiple times going, oh, no way, like gasping and being theatrical because it was good and it had me thinking. It was an interesting premise. The 7-year slip. You know what? Okay. This book was okay. It was really interesting, but once again, just like the whole miscommunication thing and like the 7-year difference and how she's like, you're not the guy I met 7 years ago, but then like magically she comes to the conclusion that she's like, you're not the guy from 7 years ago. She's like, why did I ever hold you to that standard? Like, you're different. I was like, yeah, like 7 years. Like, I just feel like 7 years is such a long time to not be with someone. So like, I just think it's not realistic. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know you guys are probably like, girl, you need to just enjoy the story for what it is, and you're right. I probably do, but I was like, no. Like, the people that like, I just can't. Like 7 years from now, I would hope I wouldn't be the same person that is dating the people that I'm dating now. I would hope I would have grown in some way at least. But then again, I think they are a little bit older than me, so I guess we can kind of give that to them at the very least. Okay. So next, we are going to look up these books. So I was right. This book is the one about the jewelry girl. Honestly, all the men are just rich. That's their personality trait. Is they're rich, jealous, and possessive. That is their personality trait. You know what? Okay. Because it was okay. I didn't really like the couple. Once again, I don't like forced proximity when it's done in a way where one of them is being mean to the other, like looking down on the other, but somehow still wants to like stick their tongue down their throat. Like that's very like an interesting way to think of someone you barely know and are constantly pushing away. Like, that's so strange. King of Greed, we'll put it in You Had Potential. I like this book just because at the time I was reading it kind of resonated with me a little bit. How she was like leaving a relationship where she didn't feel valued and prioritized. But honestly, the guy was a little weird and like a little overbearing at times, and it was like you're rooting for her the whole book and you're kind of like, I hope she doesn't get back with him. But that's just not the kind of book this is. None of these books are the book that is. I don't think I've found someone that's done that where like the girl has walked away because it genuinely is the better option. But I did like it when he gave her space that she asked for, but when he flew out of country to go stalk her on her vacation, I mean, it probably would have worked on me. But in the book, I'm like, girl, please. He's rich. Like, we get, like, girl, you're a nepo baby. Like, you could find so many good people out there who are rich. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like I said, I probably just need to work on turning that switch off. That's like super critical when it comes to my romance books. But there are some that I like. I just need to find that happy medium. But this is my tier ranking of all the books that I've read. Once again, this is just my personal opinion, and we don't have to like the same books. That's okay. It's very subjective and personal. And everybody even ranks their books differently. So, if you guys like this, make sure to thumbs up so I know. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself for how many books I read this year.